A lot of people when they're beginning with AI agents, they're trying to figure out how to apply into their personal life or their business. There's a lot of mistakes that can go wrong, right? Like they come out and see these cool things being done online, especially like on X, on Twitter, or whatever it is, and they think, oh damn, if I just get this AI agent, if I get this thing or whatever, and I just apply to my business, it could create me this massive, awesome company, right? Whatever it is. Or say they just start prompting it, they think it can do all these things, all these capabilities, and then get disappointed that when it can't do something, or maybe it can't create you a whole entire ebook, or maybe say it can't fully automate just on its own a whole entire logistics pricing agent that can send out quotes, automatically get you the deals, close the deals, and then just get you all these clients, right? That's not how it all works, and you're setting yourself up for failure in whatever endeavor you're doing, whether this is something for yourself, for a business, or maybe say you're on a team and you're trying to figure out how to get these AI agents applied for your specific case scenario, because these things can definitely offer a lot of value. They can offer so much value. And the thing, it really depends on how you are applying these things and what's the foundation you're going in when, say, you're going to be working with these AI agents, versus just say thinking from the beginning that, oh hey, if I get this agent, this thing's just going to change my whole entire life, which is completely the wrong way to go about it. You know what I mean? And the thing is, whenever we're experimenting with any new tool or whatever, we're just trying to figure out what this thing can do. So I have this very sort of curious mindset of when I join or try anything, I like to experiment and kind of push it to the limits to see what it can do. You know what I mean? But when you look out online and you're looking at and seeing what everyone is doing with their AI agents, it's more so just to show off, this is cool, but what actual practical value can this thing actually add to my life or someone else's life, especially too if I'm getting clients, customers, or whatever. Like what kind of actual tangible value can you get that? You know what I mean? Like what's the whole point of having, like, say, an office setup of like a visual thing of what all your agents are doing? You know what I mean? Like cool, it's cool, it's nice to have, right? But at the end of the day, is it actually producing you revenue? Is it keeping you alive, getting your business to see another day of light versus having to go bankrupt or even say go out of business? You know what I mean? No one wants that. And the thing is, what you want to do is, it depends on really how much time you have. You can either cut the learning curve, go to someone that already knows exactly what they're doing, or you have to kind of feel it out. The thing is, you don't want to fall into the trap of, say, just starting with this thing. Say like you're learning coding or you're learning a new business or whatever it is. You don't want to go into this thing and just kind of mess around just for the sake of mess around, because one, you're not going to be motivated, and two, you're not going to get the results that this thing can actually provide you with, like any sort of value. So what you want to do instead is build to solve your problems. You know what I mean? So whether you're doing this with someone else is doing it for you, or you want to do this yourself and kind of learn the skill, what you want to do is build for yourself to solve your own problems, which is exactly what I've been doing for myself and then how I kind of got good at it over time. You want to build to solve your own problems. This is how I learned coding. This is how I learned marketing. This is how I learned other things. You want to do things that solve your own problems, because then you're going to understand the frameworks, and you just have to know enough to get you to the next step versus knowing everything. Like I don't know, say with any agent framework or whatever, every single piece that goes together. Like sure, it makes sense to maybe read it, but the thing is, like, I've learned from just wasting so much time reading all the documentation and everything that this is a total waste of time. At the end of the day, you just want to get and extract exactly what you need, move on to the next thing, and just go from there. So this is kind of like exactly what I was just talking about here on my next point, is that I was kind of starting with the tool and experimenting with to see I can do with this thing, but not the problem itself. Like what am I having problems in my current self? Like how much time am I spending on, say, creating thumbnails, outlines, reaching out to people, or doing outreaches, or say marketing, creating creatives, anything like that that's on a repeat basis. Especially too, if there is something that can be automatable, you definitely want to figure out how you can put a process in place. But if there's a lot of experimentation and, say, tests happening, then maybe it's not the wisest thing, because if there's a lot of tests, that means you would have to reset the whole entire automation. So rather than creating automations for it with any agent system or anything, what you want to do is maybe enable it with, like, say, the capabilities, the skills, so it can connect to these skills and then just, get the work done for you faster versus you manually doing everything piece by piece. So for instance, if you have a skill that creates YouTube thumbnails, for instance, like if you're running a content creator business, then you might as well create the skill to, say, know how to generate images to a specific format that you look for. And then the only thing you have to do over time after, say, 3, 4, 5, 7 thumbnails that you post on your YouTube or whatever, like this is what I'm doing right now, actually. What I'm doing right now is I built a general skill for a thumbnail, and then I'm testing 3, 4, 5, 7 different hooks of videos. And then once I find one that's going to go viral, I'm going to build a repeatable, automatable skill for that, where I just give the idea of what I want, the title of the video, and then from there, I'm gonna produce a video out of that because then you wanna automate it because it clearly works. But in the beginning, it doesn't make sense to automate that because I don't know what works yet. Like, as you can clearly tell about the performance of my channel, right now there's nothing really that has taken off substantially. But once it reaches a point where something gets velocity or there is some sort of viral video that just pops off, that's exactly when you can start seeing more automated thumbnails around a specific format because I know it works. I just have to find the right hook, the right packaging that works, and then it makes sense to automate it. But you don't want to do this the reverse way because if you do the reverse way with a thumbnail that doesn't work, then you're just going to screw up. And this is something I've learned from making viral TikTok videos. But I'm applying the same methodology here to YouTube, and we're going to see how it goes. And this is all experimentation. I'm not saying I'm some sort of YouTube expert here. This is just how I'm learning and what I believe makes sense for automating the process. But this is just an example I want to provide you in real time. But the thing is, like with whatever agent framework you're following, there's always these core ideas, core systems. Like, so for instance, in OpenClaw, there's like the user markdown file, there's the memory, there's the soul, there's the tools. You got to learn all these basic general concepts when you're getting into anything. Whether, say, if you're going on Claude Desktop, you got to understand what Cowork is, you got to understand what Claude Code is, you got to understand what chat is, then figure out how, say, you can maybe use Dispatch on the go. Maybe, say, you can figure out how to use schedule tasks. So whatever you're building, every single business is going to use an AI system or agent differently. Maybe you don't need OpenClaw. Maybe you don't need these Hermes agents. Maybe you don't need, say, Claude Desktop for it, because if you're, say, a massive business, then maybe you need something more custom white glove to your specific case scenario that can handle all this information, right? Maybe it's better just going to, say, something that is clearly driven for, say, automatable workflows, like, say, putting your workflows out on N8N or Zapier, because there's clear, consistent outputs that you're putting out every single day. Where, say, if you need to interact with your data, have a combination of, say, OpenClaw, talking to your data, connecting to all your various different tools, then it makes sense then to add your agent there. Whereas, say, if you're like a solopreneur, maybe you have some simple processes, you're not technical, you're running everything alone, and you think Claude Code or Claude Desktop or like the suite of tools is there, then it just makes sense to maybe move forward with that. But you want to understand kind of what's on the horizon, what's on the landscape out there when you're picking and choosing your tools, and then from there pick the one that makes the most sense for you. And I did kind of mention this briefly before, but there's two things you have to obsess over in the very beginning. So one, obviously understanding your business model, right? If you're in the content creator business, if you're in the e-commerce business, if you're in the software business, mobile apps, whatever business you're in, understand the meta core concepts, because if you understand the meta core concepts, you can then figure out, okay, this is the meta core concepts, and I got to figure out what kind of agent system makes the most sense for my business. Because if I'm handling, say, like 25,000, 50,000 emails being sent out per week, then you have to figure out an agent framework that can connect to various different tools to enable that capacity, because that's a lot of capacity. Whereas, say, if you're something more a one man, two man, or small man operation, then maybe, say, a general tool, or like, especially if you're a solopreneur. If you're a solopreneur, consultant, something like that, then maybe like a Claude suite of tools makes the most sense for you. Whereas, say, if you're running a whole massive business of all these different things, context and data is important to you over time, then it makes sense to collect your own data, so then you're not vendor locked into one platform. Especially if one platform ever goes completely down, they go bankrupt, that's a huge like loss of time, effort, all this intellectual capital that you've built over time working on one AI system. If you become too dependent on them, right, because you don't have access to your memory or anything like that, then you're kind of screwed, right, if they go down. So you want to understand what are the core meta concepts that make your business function and work, and that, if you optimize them, if you increase the cycle time of, say, volume, what kind of tools it can connect to, what it can ultimately do, right? Especially if you have very specific flows, then from there you want to pick a tool that can enable that. Like, if you need something more open source, which gives you more flexibility, go with something like OpenClaw. If you're, say, trading, you need something that can, say, iterate on its own, auto research, get better over time. Maybe look for agents that can self-improve, and they have that at the foundation. So I mentioned on my previous video, I'm training right now in trading agent with paper money to see if it gets better over time with trading. So it really just depends on what you're looking for to understand the meta core ideas, and then find the tool that can compensate for that. And also understand, like, what are the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years going to look like? Does the tool that you're building on right now, is it going to be able to take you to the next level over time? You know what I mean? So if you're kind of skeptical of whether or not a tool will be able to do that because you're pretty ambitious, you have big goals for your business or whatever you're trying to do, find a tool that can either export your memory or your information cleanly into somewhere else, or find something that can grow as you scale with it. And the real thing that really made me see the value in, like, what is actually happening in AI and agents and everything right now is two big things. One thing is obviously, like, with the memory and how it gets better with you over time. And that really starts off with owning your data. Because right now, these different AI platforms, they're beginning to realize that what's happening is it's very difficult to move a one person off, say, ChatGPT or from Gemini to Claude or from Claude to ChatGPT because now, as you can, I'll show you an example here. Actually, I mean, this is a new feature from Gemini, but you can see here that Gemini just recently implemented this, and this is something I've been talking about for the past few videos. I've been preaching this, but your data is so important. They're beginning to realize because I believe Claude did it because for their activation, what you need is obviously the context of your previous conversation history. I believe Claude does it as well too. And as you can see here, like Claude also does it themselves as well. So you can see here of the value of pasting and owning your own data. But the thing is like this data is still limited in a way because it's like, you can import maybe say a file or just copy and paste it versus say like OpenClaw where you can literally have every single markdown file of just like so many different things, deliverables and everything going out there. So like once again, it really just depends on what your needs are and stuff like that. But as you can see here that your data, your memory, it's so important, and especially if it persists over time and then your AI can say reference back to it, you can engage with it. So it's never like a blank slate, right? Like you're talking to a zombie that just never met you before. That's a nightmare. You don't want that. What you ultimately want is some form of way where you can build and grow your data over time because when you're going to migrate to any other agent system, something becomes more powerful. You build a whole company based database of everything, your history, logs, transcripts. These AIs are going to become so powerful. So imagine if you can just easily tap into all your sales calls, all your transcripts. It can engage with it. You can figure out what kind of people are coming to your business, what kind of objections you're getting, what offers work, what doesn't work. This is all crazy valuable data where say just a simple consumer platform can't handle that. But if you build your own infrastructure to be able to manage that, that is so powerful. It's so valuable. And imagine if, say, you're building on top of a platform, they disappear. You've just lost so much value that you can, turn your business into profitability or say like grow from there. Like this is all information that helps you make better decisions at the end of the day. So wherever you're going, the memory, the data that comes with it, that is like precious gold. Do not take that for granted. And the other thing that really clicked for me is like when you can build and when there are these fragmented loops of say a virtual assistant here, automation tool here, then it does all these other like weird things just to do a specific task. What clicked for me is when the AI agent it can close the full entire loop of say removing everything in between. No more softwares, no more agents. It just goes from just say the connection or the API, whatever the agent is connecting to, and then just finishing the task. Sometimes you do need a software in between, but you could just remove the virtual assistant. You know what I mean? That also saves you a bunch of money. But when the agent can close the full entire loop of like the human being in the loop, that is like insanely valuable. You know what I mean? These agents, they're just going to get better over time. So you'll see them closing more and more loops. And now a big thing, especially like how some of these big tech companies, what they're doing is they're trying to restructure their organizations for like how the AI agent, the assistant can be at the center of everything, especially Block, like Jack Dorsey. What they're talking about now is that they're trying to figure out how they can position their AI assistants, their agent at the center of everything. So they're not just so they can reposition their roadmap so everything is personalized, custom white glove to their users on the Block tool, to their users who are somehow directly impacted using Block services. And this really just comes down to restructuring and rethinking how you're approaching your business. So these CEOs, they're trying to restructure everything, because at some point they're going to get replaced. So the thing is, what do you have to do so you can position yourself 1, 2, 3 years from now where you have the right foundation in place, and then when the tools come out, you're ready to plug right in. You know what I mean? But it just starts off with like simple automation, simple tools, easy things where you can get started with. And I'm not saying you have to like figure out how to replace yourself off the bat. Just get some quick wins. Buy back your time. See if you can like remove a virtual assistant from the place. See if maybe you can make your business fully cash flowing with some agents, and then see if you can sell it from there. Because if you have a full cash flowing business and you automate it with agents, you can literally license the whole entire model and then sell it to someone. You know what I mean? At a crazy profit. So as I just said, don't start off with the most complex problems you have. Don't try to build things that are cool online just because things are cool online. Like, yeah, that gets some attention, gets views, but does that actually make you money? Probably not. You know what I mean? So just because it's cool doesn't mean you should do it yourself. Like, sure, admire it. Build something boring, right? Build boring automations, flows that get stuff done, that are valuable, that mean something to you, but at the same time, they're not sexy. Like, obviously, you don't want to do that. You know what I mean? So focus on automations like that because these can actually compound over time. And I like to just end this off with the idea of being the actual business owner versus say the artist. The artist will make cool things. This is a lot of what you're seeing on X nowadays, what you're seeing on YouTube, what you're seeing a lot of people talk about, like all these cool things you can build. right? But does that actually make you money, right? Unless you're directly teaching people and people are trying to learn how to do like all these things you're doing, then maybe it'll make you money, because if you build cool and you can attract people and audiences to that, then sure, maybe that will make you some sort of money. But at the end of the day, does that actually add value to your life, right? Like, are you teaching this stuff? Then yeah, it makes sense. But if you're not, then you want to find things that are actually generating you business, generating you clients, optimizing your marketing, your trading strategies, whatever that is. Focus on that, because if you put in the business owner mindset of like what actually drives value into, say, the marketplace or whatever business industry you're in, that's actually going to produce a real tangible ROI that you can see in your bank account, versus just say something that is garnering a bunch of views on YouTube. That's all I want to leave you off with. How you want to think about AI agents, especially if you're a beginner trying to figure out like where to start, because there's overwhelmingly a lot of noise out there online on YouTube. So I'm just trying to be that signal. So hopefully this was some signal in the video you found. Like, subscribe, let me know we want to see more. And yeah, see you in another one.